Hello and welcome to WebTV Focus program, where we discuss issues that affect the Nigerian household. I am Gabriel Jude. To begin with this story, the Nigerian real estate sector has been one of the drivers of economic growth, contributing significantly to GDP and employment. In 2025, various economic, demographic, and policy-driven factors shaped the industry's trajectory. According to data from the National Bureau of Statistics, the housing and utilities monthly contribution to inflation in February 2025 was 1.95%. The real estate sector experienced a 5.4% growth rate in third quarter of 2024, indicating a steady recovery post-pandemic. Industry analysts predict that 2025 will see a growth rate of approximately 6 to 8%, driven by urbanization, infrastructure investment, and housing demand. However, Nigeria's population is projected to reach 230 million by 2025, with urbanization rate exceeding 51%. Cities such as Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt continue to experience an influx of residents, increasing demand for residential and commercial properties. Meanwhile, there is still no clarity on Nigeria's housing deficit as the countries await the next population and housing census. A major concern is the rising cost of renting apartments in Nigeria. This has witnessed significant increases from Lagos, Abuja to Uyo and has added the cost of living crisis in the country. Now, what then is the problem with having affordable housing, especially in renting decent apartments in urban areas? To discuss this with me is Mr. Francis Ajilore, CEO, Poshfield Estate Limited. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me here.
All right, so before we begin the conversation proper, there is a video I want us to watch, Nigerians' reactions on renting apartment in Lagos, before we dive into the conversation.
Okay.
Let's watch. With the current economic situation in the country, how do you describe the situation of rent?
Situation of rent in this country is something I call scamming to the landlords now, because what I discover about rent in this country now is that even local houses, you find out that the way they are hiking the house rent now is outrageous, is on the high side. So what I will say is that government should look at this, and maybe they should set up a body whereby they can look into this, because even me in my local area where I stay, the way they are increasing rent over there, even I heard of some people, ordinary one room apartment, they are paying nothing less than 15 to 10,000 every month. So this calls for attention, that government should rise up and do something concerning this.
It's because of how hard it is for people to survive. Maybe when they were collecting 200,000, bag of rice would be like 40,000. Now, the bag of rice has increased. So that's the main reason they had to increase their own rent, like the rentage. So there's nothing, we just have to kind of adapt to it. We can speak with our companies to increase our salaries too, so that we can meet up with it. And also, the little advice I will have to say, maybe for those like the unmarried, if they can easily squat with their friends to make ends meet, to be nice.
It's true that landlords, they are increasing money for rents. But my own is that they should just consider people that they have not built. Because let me just say, the house that we are renting now is not, maybe some house maybe they bought it at the age of 150 naira. Some they bought it at the age of 100 naira, and immediately they see maybe smells, this thing change, landlord too will change, which is not supposed to be. Although they are saying that government too, the land use, they are increasing it. It's true, I'm hearing that, but they should not just do it the way that will not please others because hand is not equal.
From my humble opinion, something needs to be done about the agents. I don't know if it's the agent going around telling the landlords to increase rent or blah, I don't know. But please, government or whoever that is involved in this landlord tenancy issue in Lagos should just do something about it because it's ridiculous. Getting a house in Lagos and getting shop, you pay ridiculous amount to agents, commission, damages. Come on, it's too much. It's too much. Please, they should just help us. Please, this is a cry for help on behalf of every other Nigerians.
And most of time, these agents, they are the cause of it. Because I can remember when I wanted to rent a house, and the landlord said the house rent is 150. But the agent went to meet the landlord and tell the landlord to increase the rent so that his own agency and agreement fee will be high enough. So the landlord was like, see, you have to go and meet my agent. I was like, Baba, is your agent in charge of your house? Is he the one that built the house for you?
Most agents, they are real estate, and that is their office. So when they help you to go, and, if you want to get a house, for instance, you yourself, you want to get a house, you don't know where the house, and they be using their money to go around. Do you understand? So it is where they work, they will eat, they will collect their agent fee, but that's what they've been paid for. You can't sit at the corner of your house and one person will not take you to a house there and you want it to collect it for free. They will definitely collect their agent rent, they will collect their agent fee. Do you understand? But the only thing is that they too should just try and minimize it.
It's not about paying. It's about when the rent expire, how will you be able to collect the money? It's not the first payment that matters, the second one matters because everybody is struggling to, come and pay for apartment. What happened when it expired?
Landlord, if they have to increase their rent, when they increase their rent, because if they collect the rent, they will still going to buy food at home. Are you getting what I'm saying? So it's what they collect, that's what they will use buying whatever they want to buy. So the rent is not an issue at all.
Things that is happening is not only landlords. You can't expect, maybe, yes, you may say, this person have built this house for many years. Why did he increase the rent now? Yes, he built that house for many years. He retired from office. They are you supposed to pay him pension, and they are not paying them. He cannot expect that person to bring the in-house rent down. Those days that he's collecting maybe 100,000, they are selling bag of rice 8,000. And now the person is buying bag of rice 90,000, and you want that person to collect 100,000. It's not fair now, and he's paying for he have a lot of bill to pay. No help. Our problem in this Nigeria is not landlords. It's for our government to make things better in this Nigeria. We citizens, what we are passing through is much. What we are passing through in this Nigeria is much.
The rent issue in Lagos is very hectic, and I would say is one of the most problem confronting the habitant of Lagos State. It is very, very unencouraging as it is, especially the behaviors of they call them caretakers. Because if you want to rent a house now, the caretaker will say they want to take 250 agreement, commission, and the owner of the house will take even nothing that want to take something more than that also. So by that you added the caretaker and the landlord own together, it will be very, very unaffordable. So it's very ethic, and I think we have been saying it even before meeting you. The government should find something done, maybe low costs, and even we have to have low cost houses in Lagos so that there will be relief. Because on the problem of government now, if they say they build a low cost house for people, they say 10 million, 20 million. That one cannot be called low cost. During Jakonde era, they will build houses that will be paying bit by bit, bit by bit. Even the workers, you can build houses and they pay in bit. So at the end of years, they will have balance up. And it's not only the person that bought the house that will live inside the house. Because if I have the house now, maybe government house, I will bring tenants in. That will solve a little bit the problem of rentage in Lagos State.
So, Let me start with the video. Some people talk a lot about renting apartment, contrary opinion and bringing out issues. What is your reactions to this video that we just watched?
You know, people will always see things from their own perspective, and it's a no-brainer that the cost of living, not just housing in itself, not just cost of rent, is on the eye compared to what people earn. So for instance, for someone who was earning 100,000 naira, or let's even use the previous minimum wage, who was earning the sum of 30,000 naira, the 30,000 naira possibly could go as far as taking the person home. But current realities is that possibly the 30,000 naira can't take, or let's even say the new minimum wage of 70,000 naira can't take them to the bus stop. So 30,000 naira of prior years is actually a lot stronger than the 70,000 naira, which happens to be the new minimum wage. So in harsh reality, people's standard of living is dropping drastically, and be it the agents, be it property owners, be it the economic situation is not helping matters, obviously.
So from your perspective as a real estate expert, how would you assess the renting of apartment, especially in Lagos, and let's make it a wholesome approach in Nigeria particularly, and amidst the economic situation?
Like I always tell people, when you say something is expensive, it is relative. When you say something is affordable, it is relative. To some people, and like you heard from the video, even 150,000 naira looks like, wow, way beyond the roof. Whereas somebody else tells you that 10 million naira rent is what they pay and it is affordable. So it means we all need to begin to look at ways to manage and optimize our resources. And, so that's why I said, look, it is relative to say something is affordable or expensive. Having said that, we look at you rolled out a few data, and it supports the fact that, look, we have more poor people than you have the well-to-do. But the other hindrance that I perceive could have been responsible for the issues of housing shortfall, high rental expenses, and all of that is not just the fact that the population density is on the high side in major cities in Nigeria, Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, as mentioned earlier on. However, one of the critical issues is the fact that what are the alternatives that are competing for the conventional rent? One of the key things I've been able to see is that the hospitality aspect of shortlets is causing another major challenge for the conventional rental system. Why did I say so? If a property owner, looks at the fact that if someone stays in my apartment for 1 week and pays me as much as 500,000 naira, why should I lease it out to the general regular occupant who stays all through the year and pays maybe 300,000 naira? So things that are competing for those apartments, those properties that could have been rented to people who live and work in an environment is another major component, critical component that is making this cost of housing unaffordable.
Now, I would like to take you through some concerns from Nigerians pertaining trying to get an apartment in Lagos particularly. So I have two issues here. So I'm going to read out those issues so we can relate with it. And then this is going to be in a practical way that we deal with households, and particularly this is our priority. So the first one I have is talking about renting an apartment around Agege. He said, a word of mine informed me of a dilemma in getting an accommodation in Ogba and Agege axis. On a rent of 2.5 million naira, there is an extra 1 million additional making the total of 3.5 million naira. Now, the breakdown is agency fee is 20%, legal is 10%, caution fee is 10%. So the second one said, a friend of mine is currently searching for a 2-bedroom apartment in areas like Ketu, Bega, and Ogba, but is struggling to find one within his budget. He said the rent alone is around 1.5 million naira, with the total package costing 2.5 million naira. Despite his effort, he has not found a suitable apartment. Right? So he is saying that some agents are demanding 60% agency fee. So what do you make of this scenario?
So number one, the way you said it is what they usually rent is also amount, but total package, you get those kind of feelers. But sometimes we could address issues by just, addressing it from the leaf, whereas you need to take it from the root. So I'll take it from this perspective first. When demand is more than supply, what happens? Price will obviously go up. It's a basic economic principle. So in a densely populated environment like Lagos, issues like this tend to happen a whole lot more. People want to stay a lot closer to where they work, and which is the ideal thing to do. So that's in itself, gone are the days where you usually have people say, oh, they work on the island and they stay in places like Ikotun, Idimu, and the likes. But when they look at the tear and wear on themselves and how much they spend on transportation in itself, it's like, oh, let us move a little bit lot closer. So the demand in those places that we are talking about tends to be closer to places of work for individuals. However, that has economic impact in the sense that cost of accommodation becomes relatively high and will most likely still get higher because more people will, as their income improves, they also want to come and compete by getting the same apartment in question. And earlier on, I talked about the shortlets scenario in itself, which also contributes to that in itself. So I take it further by saying that the issue about agents abusing the privileges, or what, like one of the people on the street said, it is their right to earn an income or to earn a living from searching and getting you a property. Absolutely, yes. But in a sane society, in civilized climate, most of these things are regulated. So if it is well regulated, then there won't be discrepancies in terms of it is 20%, it is 10%, it is 60%. There should be a standard that is used across board. So a company tried to get involved in some global businesses, and you get to see that there is a standard. Some of the things that people, realtors or real estate practitioners here want to charge as much as 10%, but there's a set standard in some of these developed clients that says, look, we are not paying more than 2%, and it won't exceed that 2%. You're not paying good, we earn more than 5%. As a matter of fact, there are cities in UK, for instance, there are other part of UK that could say 5% is applicable, but within London itself, it's not more than 2%. And these are few places where government could come to play and set up agencies that, streamline how these things are done. And by so doing, people begin to adjust and adhere to some of these things. And like some people also say, agents also recommend to landlords to say, look, jack up the price. One thing government should also realize is that by saying it has to be 1 year, the consequence of that is that, okay, the landlord could also say, you are not the one that built my house for me. You are not the one that fixed and renovate it for me. The cost of this and that, influence what I should build. If you're insisting I should only charge for 1 year, then the implication is, or the counter implication is that what I should charge for 2 years, I would rather make it 1 year. And that's one of the things that have been responsible for the hike in, the rental charges, as it were.
Okay, so I would like to follow up on that. So in a situation where a landlord just wake up one day and said, I'm increasing my rent, So you don't see any form of adjustment, any improvement value on the apartment. So you begin to imagine, where is this coming from? And then, like somebody said, that maybe because they basically rely on, on that particular facility. But I want you to identify the gaps that are within this space. Is there something that needs to be addressed specifically from the side of the landlord, from the side of the agent, from the side of the tenants, and wholesomely, in the real estate sector in particular?
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be very practical with this. Identifying problems is something anybody can do, even a fool can do that. However, being able to provide solution is what really distinguishes you out there. And every one of us have a role to play. And we all have to be very intentional. And that's why the more housing options that we have, the better the customers end up, or the tenants end up being at an advantage. There will seem to be a form of equilibrium. There will be a form of leverage that, then makes the landlord themselves to say, okay, let's balance this a little bit more. There seem to be more options, as it were. So, but part of the critical things, for instance, the illustration you gave about a dilapidating property, if it's not structural, then obviously one of the key things that could happen is the occupant could equally agree with the landlord or the property owner, say, look, I will improve on this infrastructure, but I should get a waiver for this period of time. I would not get a rent review for the next 5 years. These are more strategic and pragmatic steps to take. That way, a reasonable property owner also realizes that, look, the value of this property will no longer remain the way it used to be, and thereby making it a win-win situation. On the other end, the property developer or property owner should also, have a clear understanding that, look, if you improve your property, if you add value to your property, it becomes more durable, it becomes more appealing to more people. Yeah. And while also developing such property, you should have a plan to say, look, rents from 2 units out of this possible 6 units will be channeled towards adding value and improving this infrastructure every 6 years, or every 2 years, every 3 years. And that way it becomes a win-win situation. The government's part of it is that there's what we call integrity test of a property. So the fact that a property at the point of completion had been passed okay doesn't mean that from time to time, government doesn't go there to check the status of such property to know whether it's healthy enough for people to inhabit in it.
Yes. Okay, so in a short while, I want you to give your advice to somebody who is watching you right now.
In life, there are things you have control over, there are things you don't have control over. As Nigerians too, we need to begin to optimize our resources. So I don't want to say cut, so you don't cut your expenses to the point that you end up cutting your life. So optimize the resources that you have. I'll use myself as an illustration. When I began my journey, so I only had the basics: the TV, a plastic chair, a mattress, but while I was in that situation, I was saving enough to actually provide my first house. And from there, I took it further, made savings. By the time you increase your income possibilities, that's the one you have control over. The ones you don't have control over is the owner of a property can say he has even sold it. You don't have control over it. So gradually take your mind away from things you don't have control over and begin to focus, gravitate more towards things you have control over. For government, make sure that you provide an enabling environment, which includes regulatory procedures that needs to, policy making that needs to protect your citizenry. And then by also making funds, cheap funds, cost of doing business is very high in Nigeria. Make things a lot easier with private developers, and your people will be a lot happier for you, and we'll have a better society to live in. And by extension, security issues will nosedive, and what you pump into security, you can then begin to look at pumping into other value-adding incentives to the society.
All right, so the government should provide regulatory body in such a way that will regulate these excesses, agents, and all of that, and then also cut your, what we use, cut according to your size, right?
According to your material.
According to your material. Now, all right. Thank you very much for your insightful conversation, Mr. Francis Ajilore, CEO, Poshfield Estate Limited. Thank you for your time. And now to you, our esteemed viewers, this is where we draw the curtain for the discussion today. If you want to get more knowledge on finance, the market, banking, the economy, and investing, please visit the Poshfield website, WebTV, YouTube, and follow our social media platform displayed on the screen. Till we come your way again, I am Gabriel Jude. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.